Wow, I'm so happy to have this opportunity to meet and speak with Magnus Appelberg. And how this came about. If you have not had a chance to listen to a recent episode with Frank Kappas, who lives in Finland and is an Ashtanga Yoga teacher, he was kind enough when I asked him, "Is there anybody that you think would be, I could talk to?" And he said, "You got to speak with my friend Magnus." And so here we are. And Magnus, thank you so much. You're in Finland, and I'm so delighted to have this opportunity to talk with you. How's your day going so far? I think it's around about 1:30 there, so I think you're in the afternoon in Finland. How are things going for you today?
Well, hi, Todd. It's really my honor to be here. Things are going pretty windy. It's getting closer to zero, and the sea is still 6 degrees. So I'm giving all these nature reports because with my wife we are living on an island in the archipelago, like 30, 40 kilometers from Helsinki. So
Wow.
we are really in the middle of nature all the time.
Wow. I are you how far away is the island from the mainland?
No, it's pretty close to the mainland. So with the boat, I get there, like in 5 minutes.
Gotcha. And in the winter, are you still able to pass? Does that boat go back and forth in the middle of winter, or is it the type of thing you have to have all your supplies ready to go, and you might have to hunker down for for a while?
Now it's like for the last 2 winters, we had ice here in front of us for only a week or two, because the winters has been so mild. In
Mm,
normal wise, you walk on the ice for a couple of months here, but
wow.
now it's been really lousy winters in one way, but it makes it easier to swim. Of course, you don't have to cut your hole in the ice.
Oh
So
man, well,
mostly by boat, even through the winter. I have an aluminium boat which breaks the ice up to 3 centimeter.
wow. I live in Florida. The thought of ice is a very foreign concept. I grew up here and I didn't even see snow until I think I was 18 or 19 was the first time I actually got up north and saw snow. And so
Yeah.
when I've been watching you on Instagram and seeing some of your videos with you swimming in the under the ice, on top of the ice, I don't even know where to begin. Because when the water temperature here gets down like in, mid 70s, I'm putting a wetsuit on and the wind is blowing. Yeah, I figured you would laugh at me. I figured you'd have to laugh at that, right? Because I grew up in such a different type of climate. And I love the fact that you just use the terminology like, because the winters have not been extremely cold for you, that you said, like, the winters they haven't been very good. Like you're seeking, you almost want it to get colder.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I have so many questions for you because, as soon as I get into colder weather, my fingers start tingling and I have a challenge. I haven't gotten acclimated to it. Can you
Mm.
tell me a little bit about is this something that you grew up with? And when you were a young child, someone said, let's go swimming? Or later on in life, did you get this idea like, I'm just going to go in? I've been away for, yeah. Tell me how you got started with this.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's a normal thing in Finland. We have this sauna, of course. You heard about sauna, the
Yes.
really hot steam room, and in the winter we always combined it with going into the ice hole. Well, always and always, but like 20 years ago, I started this habit of sauna and ice swim, but it was kind of no matter how hard I or often I practiced, I couldn't swim more than 50 meters, and it was like, oh my god, I can't move anymore. Yeah, I got to get up.
Yes. Yes. More than like, so you try to swim and you could get about
Mm.
50 meters. But am I correct in hearing that you, I believe Frank mentioned, or either I read on your website that you've been able to stay in that freezing cold water for up to an hour? Is that
That's correct.
a
That's
whole
correct.
hour? I just don't see how that's possible.
Well, it's a question of adaptation, and the adaptation is a question of how to kind of in which direction you steer your physiology.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is a slow, gradual process of
It,
building up.
it,
Like if I went and visited you tomorrow in Finland and we got a good ice storm and you said, "Come with me in the water," there's no way I would make it an hour, right? Like, wouldn't I die?
no,
I
no,
mean, honestly,
you
like,
would you would die like in, honestly, you would be seriously injured in 10 minutes, and you would
yeah,
be numbed. You would have to you would be unconscious because your system is not adapted to it. You
wow,
can't force the adaptation, but
yeah,
the adaptation can be amazingly fast. So
mm,
I had persons where I do these weekend retreats where we go into the cold like during one weekend for 5 times. Really, I mean, we prepare and then we try to do it in a good way. So after staying like 40 seconds, some people come screaming out, and this is not possible the first time. But then the last time they might stay in 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and everything's cool.
wow, wow,
So you it's a learning process.
yeah, yes. Oh, well, if you at that for you at that point, was it a goal to stay there for 1 hour? Was that like a challenge that you had set for yourself? Had you built
Actually,
up?
it was because it was 3 years ago when I turned 60. So this yogic tradition about doing as many backdrops as the years you're turning. So I thought 60 backdrops. No way. So what about sitting for 60 minutes? Yes. So
Mm,
I started to do a serious practice for that. Before that, my maximum was 30 minutes.
wow, that's
So
yeah.
I, it was in August. I had been all the summer swimming in the warm water. For us, warm water is 15 degrees, 70 degrees and above. I don't know what that's in Fahrenheit, but it's a
Yes,
bit more.
I hear
So
you.
yeah, so the first session was 10 minutes, and I gradually got by. So I got till in 5 weeks I got to 45 minutes without any problems. But then
Wow.
I had only a couple of days left, so it's the jump from 45 to 60 minutes was quite a challenge.
Oh, I can't
I
imagine.
must admit, I felt slightly cold afterwards.
Oh my
I
God.
did.
Like slightly cold in the way. Were you being medically supervised when you would do this, or is this the sort of thing that you always have
Yeah,
somebody on land like watching?
even tougher. I had my wife.
Oh, well, gosh, yeah. I mean, was she wanting you to achieve this, or was there a part of
No,
her?
she didn't want me to do it, but she knows me for more than 30 years, so
Yeah,
she
yeah.
realized there's no resisting here. So she was just open your eyes. I want to see your eyes. Yeah, not rolling. Good. You can continue.
Oh my gosh.
But
That's
it really
yeah,
it might uh, sound pretty much, but it's not. It's a different thing to sit in the winter in the ice hole, because then the outside temperature is minus and there's always a wind and so on. I was sitting in a chest freezer with ice cold water mixed with a lot of ice, so it was steady 0 degrees all the time. The ice didn't melt. So
gotcha.
then when sitting indoors, your head is in room temperature.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
is different. I mean, it's easy.
Yeah. Oh man. So what are you, a student or a friend or a colleague of Wim Hof?
No,
Okay.
no. I know Wim's work since 15 years, but I never really tried it
Yeah.
because of his strong breathing technique. Because like 30 years ago or even more, I did a lot of these hyperventilation things like rebirthing, holotropic breathing, and comes with many brands. And it's a very strong cathartic work, and it's not my cup of tea anymore. It's like I've been there, I've done it, I'm not going back. So what I'm doing is actually 180 degrees in the different opposite direction. So how I prepare for the cold is like very slow, very long exhalations to cool down my autonomous nervous system. But it's like it's a very simple principle. You know, in pranayama we breathe in kind of half the amount that we breathe out. So we breathe in one, or let's say 4 counts, we breathe out 8. So what about breathing out as long as possible? That makes it really interesting. And then you get in a very much different state. And when you hit the cold, you strive to get back to that state as soon as possible,
Mm.
because the first gasp of the ice cold water is non-negotiable. Everybody gets it. But the thing is, how fast do you get back into a relaxed state so the
Wow.
adaptation will
Yeah.
take place?
Interesting. So is this, sorry, just technically, your nose breathing, mouth
No,
closed,
yeah,
in
no,
through
no,
nose?
always breathing in through my nose and breathing out with different kind of sounds, for example, or through my nose, or using ujjayi breath, like in Ashtanga Yoga. So I'm experimenting with,
Wow. Yeah.
many things, even
Wow.
with mantra, like a simple Om,
Yeah. Yeah.
very long Om.
That's so interesting, Magnus, because it sounds like you're just like in the laboratory,
Yeah, I
just
am.
figuring it out in the moment. Well, what if I try this? What if I try that? What type of
That's great.
effect does it
Yeah.
have on my nervous system? And that's incredible.
Eh,
Is the it just to go back a little bit though on that 1 hour sit um in the ice, what was is that a world record of some sorts, or was it
No,
documented,
no,
or is this
not even
purely just a
close.
self, this is a self-induced, like this is just for me and I don't have a news crew on me,
No,
or
no, no, no,
yeah,
no.
gotcha.
Just for me, just for
All
me.
right. Do you have
Because
any? Yeah.
1 hour is still nothing. The world record of ice bath is 2 hours 35 minutes, something like that. And
Gotcha.
that's heavy. That's really heavy.
That's really heavy.
Yeah.
What are your, I read a book by James Nestor called Breath, and then I went back
Yes.
to one of his other books called Deep, where he chronicles the freediving champions.
Yeah, I read that too.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? And it's so fascinating because what you're talking about, just in terms of what you're attempting to do with being able to regulate your nervous system in that cold environment, and what freediving attempts to do with breath holding and going
Yes.
incredibly deep and holding
Yeah.
for an incredibly long period of time.
Yeah.
And
So my
yeah,
first touch with free diving was actually more than 20 years ago. And now recently I taken up free diving in a small scale again with my teacher Johanna Nordblad, who has done the world record in ice diving.
wow.
So
You're
she
trained.
went from
Wow.
ice hole to another under the ice in only swim trunks and goggles, no flippers, 103 meters under
Holy
the ice.
cow. She's a world
Yeah,
record
she's
holder.
tough. She's tough.
And you're training with her?
We done some free diving under her instruction. Yeah, yeah, and we done some cold exposure together. Just just enjoying it, and then sharing tips of how to practice and how to adapt, and breath, carbon dioxide, everything. Just she's inspiring.
Yeah, amazing. It sounds like it. Now, what is your experience with yoga and Ashtanga yoga?
So I've been doing daily practice Ashtanga yoga for 23 years, and Frank was actually my first teacher.
Oh, nice.
Uh, yeah, so and he got me into Vipassana meditation also. So me and wife, we have done 3 10 days retreats, and we do Vipassana daily. But it's like for 20 years now. But the rigorous Ashtanga practice, rigorous Vipassana practice, it's at some point, you start wondering, hey, what about if I start doing something different? I still following the same direction. I mean, following the breath, and researching about physiology. What am I actually physiology doing when I'm doing this practice? How can I tip it even further on? And how does that change my life? What different uh, kind of practice can I do, or where does this take me? So for me, it took me to, it's like 5 years ago or 6 years ago, to a workshop by Simon Borg Olivia, the Australian teacher. And his concept is like breathe less, stretch less, work less, eat less. Well, that's a very hard thing for me. and move from your core. And so the practices we did with him, he called it yoga synergy. What was first at first sight was like, what on earth are we doing? It makes no sense. And after 5 sessions, I'm your biggest fan.
Wow.
And he got the chemistry, physiology, or breathing straight for me. So actually,
Nice.
the greatest kind of controversy is that the less you breathe, the more oxygen your cells get.
It is a
So
really interesting controversy.
yeah,
Can you explain a little bit like breathing?
yeah,
Well,
it is
I love that you said his philosophy was breathe less, stretch less. So because when you think in the Ashtanga practice, there's a
more is more.
tendency more is more. Breathe harder, not necessarily faster, but more vigorous
Deeper.
breathing and
Yeah.
more vigorous stretching. And
Mhm.
so then on that note, if I'm going to try to breathe less, so if my practice time, say, would take an hour, and in Ashtanga, I guess we could, in theory, count how many breaths we are prescribed to do within a primary
Mm,
series. I've never
mm,
tried to count how many breaths there would be, but I bet you if we were working off the counting system, we could literally come up with a number of how many times we would breathe in and out. And
mm,
so then the idea, then you're practicing yoga, and then what, not Ashtanga style yoga vinyasa, more of like less stretching, almost like if I was going to do Paschimottanasana or Weston 10 stretch where I reach for my toes and do a forward bend over my legs, I just wouldn't try to go very deep and just try to breathe really slow. Is that kind of the idea?
well, the idea is to kind of breathe less volume per minute,
Gotcha.
because the concept behind this is called the Bohr effect, and that was discovered 1904. I mean, really long ago, by Christian Bohr. He could show that for in order for the cell to get oxygen, so that means that the oxygen molecule has to jump from the hemoglobin molecule, and the hemoglobin molecule is clinging to the oxygen molecule with a force that is kind of in not straight line, but it's inverted relation to how much carbon dioxide there is in the blood present. So the more carbon dioxide present in the blood, the easier the oxygen level, oxygen molecule jumps from the blood to the cell.
Mm.
So the higher carbon dioxide level you have in your blood, the more oxygen your cells get, and that is dependent on the volume of breath per minute. The less you breathe, the less you ventilate out the carbon dioxide. So that's kind of the key element, not to ventilate too much.
Yes.
So I'm telling my Ashtanga students that breathe softly and according to the situation. So when you're standing just still in samasthiti, you breathe so that you are aware of the sound of the breath and make it easy, make it nice. And when you start moving, you try to keep it soft and easy all the time. There will come situation where you will breathe very strongly, of course, but after that, when the situation calms down, you aim for a very calm breath again. So you don't have to breathe that deep, except in very exceptional situations. Yeah.
That's fascinating, Magnus. I already can't wait to practice after the podcast today to start experimenting. So can you give me an example of when you say lower volume per minute? And then I read recently, excuse me, in the work that James Nestor did in his breath book, that the ideal would be about 5 to 6 breaths per minute. So about a 5 to 6 second duration of inhalation to about a 5 to 6 second duration of exhalation.
Yeah, I have tried that too. So I put on a metronome to click
Yeah,
every 5 seconds, and I can tell you it's really a slow breath.
that's a real
It's
slow breath. Yeah.
So that's one solution. My other solution is you breathe as deeply as you need, not deeper. So you keep it
Ooh,
light.
yeah,
So I think the key word here would be breathe light.
yeah. Good point. And so that that
Yeah.
that kind of debunks the idea of like, let's breathe deeper, everybody. Let's force air in and out of the body to oxygenate. You know, this idea of like we'll get more
Yeah.
energy by, and it sounds like what you're learning is that it might not be that.
That,
It's
no.
more,
It's a
it's
very huge misunderstanding or
mm,
based on ignorance.
mm,
Because when you saying, like Wim Hof is saying, that oxygenate by breathing deeper and more, what you are oxygenating is your blood. That's true, but it's already oxygenated because your oxygen saturation can't exceed 100%, and it's for most people around 95 already.
mm, mm.
So what happens is you are ventilating carbon dioxide away from your lungs, from your blood. And what happens then, your cells are starting to suffer from hypoxia, too little oxygen. And then your head starts spinning. Your
Uh,
head doesn't start spinning because you get too much oxygen. It starts spinning because your brain doesn't get any oxygen.
that
Fascinating.
It's fascinating, and I like the fact that you'd brought up that you've practiced and or experienced different types of breathing, whether it be holotropic or transformational breath, where there is this hyperventilation process, and sometimes post, because the feeling of that seems, either you could call it euphoria, or it can also seem a little intense and uncomfortable, and that you almost like, I've been there, done that, like I've done that enough times. It seems like you have explored that, but you're finding it. Do you sometimes argue that, or not argue, but just converse and debate that what is the actual value of that? is it just a lack of oxygen? So of course you're going to feel a little bit kind of loopy.
Yeah.
And what is the value of just creating loopiness if we think that the loopiness, for lack of a better term, is more just like a we feel fascinated by that because wow, I've never felt that sensation before. But if you investigate it further, is it actually really great for us? Is it something that's really positive that has some sort of transformational effect? What it sounds to me is
Well,
like you've
well,
turned
well,
it
let's
in.
see.
Yeah,
It's only one. This hypoxia is only one part of that, and it stirs very strong emotions. The very tough breathing. It stirs very strong emotions. It can positively lead to catharsis, which is very often the aim, the goal, and it gives you a totally kind of new experience of your own body, and that's all positive things. So
yeah,
I'm never arguing with anybody or what is better, because I don't know, there's no such thing as one size fits all.
yeah. Good
And
points.
when you talking about breath work, it's a very large concept,
Yeah,
and you
it
must
is.
always take into consideration what is your goal, what are you aiming for. But the thing is that the terminology uh, around it gets screwed up. But that's okay, because if you know what you're doing, what you're aiming for, and you see it's coming that way, it's all good. It's all good.
Nice,
But,
Magnus.
but
Great point.
for the last 20 years, for me, it's been because I'm an all or nothing guy, mostly being. But now I'm 63, so I'm cooling down a little bit now. So
Yes.
to see how little can I do to get into a total state of stillness. So
Yes.
for me, the stillness of the mind, the stillness of a whole my being. So to get even rid of this terminology, body and mind, that's kind of splitting yourself up
Mm.
into two. And then you adding your soul. Now you have and spirit. Now you have many, many different parts of you, but it's still all about you. Who are you? Not differentiating into different concept of me, but who are you? So get into this total state of I am. That's the thing.
Yes. Well said. Well said. I'm curious. You said with your practice in Vipassana, and then just to be respectful of Vipassana, I don't want to, I know there's a certain element of, to learn the technique, you need to go for a 10-day sit, and that type of thing. But just to kind of bring up a couple of ideas here, points that the process of anapana and observing respiration, and the idea of observe the respiration and don't practice pranayama. Try to observe respiration without control of respiration. And that's such an interesting place to go. What have you found with that? And when you are practicing, say, Vipassana, do you try to stay in that realm during that designated practice time of I'm not going to slow my breathing down? Or have you been at this for so long that just your natural breath now is a
Yeah.
deep,
Well,
a slow?
well, my answer is yes and no. So
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you get these moments in Vipassana when you notice I'm hardly breathing. Wow, I'm all still. My body disappears. And then you get attached to that idea, of course, and which prevents you from returning to it. But this thing about when the mind gets so still that the body hardly uses any oxygen, then that is a kind of stillness of your breath. But stillness of your breath can be induced by breathing less uh, over an extended time. So you get up your carbon dioxide tolerance higher and higher. So
Mm,
it's kind of the noble art of suffocating.
Mm.
That's a term which
Didn't know that.
Konstantin Buteiko's students used. So Buteiko was a very pioneer in the breathing area. So he was all about breathing less. So his students were talking about the noble art of suffocating. But
Interesting.
when you stand, when you can hold that for some time and regularly, and then turn to just watching your breath,
Mm.
you get very fast into the state, wow, I'm hardly breathing, because your carbon dioxide tolerance is so high that your breath gets less triggered by it. So because the impulse to breathe is not from lack of oxygen, it's because of surplus of carbon dioxide. So if you
Mm.
get used to higher carbon dioxide, so when you calm down, you really do calm down, because you don't actually need to breathe much at all.
That's so interesting. I remember coming across a story recently about a monk in Tibet where, you know, the higher up, the higher going higher in altitude, and the effect that altitude plays on oxygen carbon dioxide ratios in the blood and the mind that's that there's the that's the reason they're going higher up into the mountains, because you could almost like there's like a slowing of the mind, like just due to the fact that there this carbon dioxide might build up, I suppose, which made sense to me. All of a sudden it kind of clicked for me, like, oh, that makes perfect sense. That's why all these yogis were going high up into caves in the mountains, because perhaps the thin oxygen up there was creating a state of euphoria. Would you agree with that, or have you experienced something similar going into the ice? Because that seems in a similar vein. Like
Ah,
when I think of Tibetans and you hear about Tumo and being able to sit on ice,
yeah,
melt ice around the body with just breathing,
yeah,
but it doesn't even seem like to
they
me
are my idols.
you don't really want to melt anything. You almost want to become ice. It sounds like like you're not even looking to like do this really strong breathing thing to try to heat your body up. It's almost like you're like really just becoming one with the ice. Am I getting it right? Am I seeing it right? Or
Let's see. About altitude, I have no personal experience, so I can't talk about that. But about this ice cold temperature, let's see. Uh, it's very tough on your physiology, and it's even tougher on your mental side, because you get all these scary thoughts that are, oh my God, am I freezing my toes off? Am I gonna die? So all these every morning when I jump into the sea, now it's 6 degrees, so you really feel a little bit of gasp already when you hit
six
the
degrees?
water.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it will turn into zero. It will turn into zero, and that's a real deal. That's a real deal. So, and the wind is coming from the sea very hard. So it's like, oh my God, why am I doing this? And so that's one, my mind telling myself a story. So yeah, okay, that was an interesting story, and I keep walking. Then the next story is uh, like somebody tempting me. What about if you don't go today? Wow, that's a very interesting story also. Let's see, what is this leading? Are you sure you don't have a cold? Yeah, I'm not quite sure of it. Well, nice try. so, about entering this very uncomfortable zone, it is it's a conscious attempt to get comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. So that could kind of leak over into your whole life. So all uncomfortable situations in your life, you could take them like a grain of salt. Okay, it's happening. What's the story in my mind? Well, that was an interesting story. Very much thank you. But what's the reality? Like in cold water, what's the reality? It's cold. Yeah, it's freezing. It feels unpleasant. Sorry, that was an interpretation. That was a story. Cold is the only reality. And when so the circumstances is so tough, it forces you to stay present. So it's like a turbocharged Vipassana.
Wow. It makes sense. I can
Mm.
see that. Man. All right. Well, after speaking with you and Frank, I guess I'll have to come to Finland and give it a try. But because I'm in Florida now, what is my next best option? I saw you have a course online that
Yeah, but then
you know,
you need cold water, you need cold shower or ice bath yourself.
mhm,
But I'm not confident in the ice cold shower you have in Florida.
it's not very
I
cold.
suppose it doesn't
Yeah,
go. Uh, mm, it's not cold. Let's
not
get
cold.
it straight. It's not
Yeah,
cold.
it's not even close to cold. For me, it is, but for you, no, it'd be
Yeah,
like a hot shower.
no,
Like,
no.
so I get an ice bath as your philosophy or theory or instruction with students to every, it sounds like you go in every day. Is that you do it every day? Even is that your
I do it.
ritual? That's yeah.
It but it's like doing the yoga practice,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
except I don't take days off
You don't take any days off. On the
in the
cold,
cold, but
on
in
the
the yoga, yes, every opportunity.
yeah. Every opportunity. But in the cold, I mean, Magnus, this is just amazing. I mean, I love getting a chance to hear this because I think, just based on my own experience, I just that just it sounds so challenging, but I understand you're in the environment and so it's a part of you, and it's not so extreme because you're just living life. So but
Yeah,
it just sounds so amazing, so fantastic, like challenge, like such an incredible challenge. That's amazing. I mean, so I'm just trying to even envision Finland in the middle of winter, not a lot of sunshine. I don't how many hours of sunlight comes out. What's the like in the on the
well, in the south, we have daylight during Christmas, like 6 hours.
6 hours?
But in the north of Finland, no daylight at all. For
None at all.
the norther you go, the longer is the night.
And you're in the south because you're on the,
I'm
like you
very
said, the
much in the south.
archipelago. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're walking out and you're waiting for that daylight time, or you don't even care. You go in the pitch black dark. I mean, where do you draw the line here? Do you actually
Yeah.
go while it's dark and still jump in the ice as well?
Yeah, I do. If I wake up before the daylight,
Yeah.
and I aim for first doing my cold swim and then doing some warm up exercises, and then I'm having my coffee. So
Wow.
before the coffee,
Yeah, before the coffee. The coffee's maybe the reward at the end of the session.
yeah,
And
and the
then
warm fire, and the warm fire.
in the warm fire. And then I'm curious, so then just to kind of continue on with your day, then at this point, you mentioned Ashtanga and or yoga practice and Vipassana meditation, which
Yeah,
probably if you're a dedicated Vipassana practitioner, you're meditating twice a day for an hour each time. Are you
not enough. I'm flexing the concept. I'm flexing the
Mhm.
concept of Ashtanga. I'm flexing the concept of Vipassana. I'm flexing everything.
I love it.
Uh,
Can you tell me just in relation to your Ashtanga and Vipassana,
mm,
how are those two worlds meeting for you now? Because if you have this open-minded approach of, okay, there's these structures, but now
mm,
what's going to work for me? What are you finding when you are blending these two together? Because I found when I got a chance to go to Vipassana, it really put the icing on top of the cake for me. I feel like
mm,
before that, I had the cake. I was loving my yoga practice, and I was reading, philosophy, yoga philosophy. And then when I went to Vipassana, I felt like, ooh, I think I,
mm,
I think I got a glimpse into what
yeah.
this philosophy was talking about and what I might be attempting to do. And I really had the strong feeling that if I didn't do Vipassana, I would have never had this opportunity to really understand what this deeper layer of the yoga holds for us.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
so,
same. Yeah.
yeah, that's cool. Can you tell me a little bit about what sort of
But yeah, but
insights
for
you?
for for me, when I start practicing, so actually the morning getting ice cold is just something that happens. I don't even consider it practice. I start from the more subtle, going to the stronger one. So I start with Vipassana, and before I got this epiphany about carbon dioxide, I always started with the more subtle, the Vipassana, then pranayama, and then Ashtanga practice. But nowadays it's like I'm starting with breath control. So I'm breathing less. I'm doing kumbhaka on exhalation as much as possible. So I really get this to cultivate this air hunger. You know, the sense of you have to breathe more, but then you're not allowing yourself. So let's call it air hunger. So cultivating air hunger for 20 minutes, and then letting that go and going into scanning the body like in Vipassana and noticing what happened. And that's a very wonderful turn on. So I I find that you could actually learn to meditate in a much easier way than it's taught in the Vipassana concept by taking the concept of breath, by breathing less, understanding carbon dioxide, understanding the autonomic nerve system. So I have a concept like breath, the portal to meditation. So let's see how that works out on the life. Okay.
Yes. Oh, these are great ideas. I do like the fact that you're mapping out a specific start with air hunger,
Yeah,
do the body
and
scan meditation, and
yeah,
then
and
and
then you can do a physical practice like
do physical.
Ashtanga.
Yeah.
Start with the sun salutations and see how far that takes you.
Mm.
That's the only concept I have. So let's see how far this takes me.
Yeah. No main agenda. I'm going to do first and second and third series all in one session.
Oh.
There's somebody out there doing
I,
it.
I
There's somebody out there doing it, I'm sure. Um, yeah, I love that theory. I keep, we have I have a Mysore program or Mysore style Ashtanga program here, and I am trying to constantly get that point across right in the beginning that if we just do sun salutations, that's a complete practice. And
mm,
you can come in, you can just do sun salutations. Cause I remember my mind getting so trapped in that, like, I have to do the whole primary. Like, there's no question. I just have to do it. There's just
yeah,
not, there's
yeah,
no way
me
around
too.
it.
15
Yeah.
years ago, I was so kind of dedicated,
I was so
and
kind of dedicated. Good way to say it.
yeah, uh,
Yes.
I was pretty stiff. So I mean, Kapotasana was always my horror, and but stiff but strong. So my teacher Lino Miele always told his assistants that practice on Magnus the adjustments. You can't break him. It's safe to practice with Magnus. You can't break him.
You had two
I was like,
people
God.
pulling on you in
Uh,
Kapotasana. One person pulling your hips forward from the front, and another one trying to push your hands to your feet from the other side.
that was my first Kapotasana experience. It was Lina was pulling my hips forward. His wife at that moment, Tina, was pushing my hands until they touched my toes, and I was like, "Wow, this is really yoga."
This is the real deal right here. Yeah, talk about thinking like these experiences all seem like horizontal in similarity that you're saying, okay, I'm in the ice. Are my toes going to fall off? Am I going to die? You're in Kapotasana adjustment. Is my back going to snap? Am I going to survive? And so there's these in Vipassana, interestingly enough, if you go for a real long sit, I remember one time because the early morning sits, or like in the afternoon where you get those, like you would do like a hour and a half and then you have a little break and then you get like another hour and a half where you get this 3 hour stretch. And I remember saying to myself, all right, that's it. I'm going to sit for 3 hours and I'm not going to move. I'm just not going to move. I'm going to do it. I'm going to stay. And I did actually hang in there for the 3 hour stint. And
Ah,
I thought I was going to die. Like I really,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I thought I was going to die. I'm
Very-
just sitting here. I'm not going to die. But so it's incredible because in all of these disciplines, they can get taken to such an incredible
Mhm,
level of, like you said, acclimation. Obviously, there's an acclimation period. I mean, if someone on day one comes into my store and you say, okay, let's go straight to Kapotasana, it could be, it could be really dangerous. Don't you? I'm just,
uh,
there could be harm there. You know what I mean? Like, so I guess that's my next question is, how have you danced that line with loving yourself or loving therapeutic and taking care of yourself, but also getting a little close to the edge? I'm sure you've gotten a little close to the edge in the ice element. It sounds like you had to have gotten close to the edge, especially on that 1 hour sit from 45 minutes like to an hour, a 15-minute increase. Like when we look at the way the free divers build up that little bit further depth, little bit further depth, I mean, it's
mhm,
dangerous to all of a sudden to say, I'm going to go 3 more meters, and to us, it doesn't
mhm.
sound like much, but that's a lot. So I
Yeah,
guess, what have you learned in this process of exploring edges and
yeah.
maintenance of self-care?
Okay, in the area of cold exposure, what I learned, because I'm my own guinea pig, so I try to do, or I did try to do, uh, kind of find all the mistakes you can do, and report back and say, don't do this.
Mm.
So the thing is, the only thing you should really try to avoid is hypothermia. But hypothermia comes in different levels. So the first stage of hypothermia is when you start shivering. It's not dangerous, and it's even very stimulating for your fat burn, but it activates brown fat even more effectively. And what it means is your core temperature gets down to 35 degrees Celsius, and that's okay. But the thing is, if you start shivering in the ice cold water and you are in the winter, when you're coming up from that, you're still getting chilled down. And okay, and then you get up into the house. There's room temperature, and you have a core temperature that is okay, and you feel okay. Slight shivering doesn't matter. You think you survived, but the thing is, you have this layer of ice cold blood really close to your skin. So you have two different temperatures. You have your surface temperature, you have your core temperature, and they start equalizing. And if they equalize too fast and you are not trying actively to raise your core temperature will drop significantly, and that feels terrible. You really start shivering.
Wow.
And but that's also, if you are a healthy person, it's okay. It's okay, but it's very unpleasant, and it's all kind of perception. So I did this major mistake once. That I came from a very long session in the cold, came in from the winter cold, went straight into a hot shower. And the sensation of that was like somebody took their fist and hit my heart. So I had to get down on all fours,
Whoa.
because it was really took all the juice out of me, and I was kind of a shivering mess of a mess of a person for 5 minutes.
Oh,
But I also heard from a different person. They had experienced it for 20 minutes before they could get up.
whoa.
But then we have the other side of it. Uh, After a couple of years of that, for example, after my 1 hour session in the ice bath. I got straight into the cold shower, in the hot shower, and it didn't worsen my situation at all, because at that point I will also adapted to this situation. So actually you can adapt to anything, but that's really hardcore.
It's really
And
hard.
then we have, how do you perceive it? Kind of, what's your interpretation when you start shivering like a mad, and you can't say a straight word, and your brains go like click click, what is that? Do you make anything out of it? Is this a bad thing, or is this a neutral thing? Is this a good thing? So if you can stay kind of curious and, hey, what's going on, then it's all right. For example, this freediver Johanna Nordblad, we discussed hypothermia, and I said, well, I was once half an hour in a kind of really strongly shivering state, and she said, well, I once forgot myself photographing under the water too long in the winter, and I shivered for 4 hours afterwards. I was like, are you crazy? And her only comment was, it was so interesting.
Just curious and open to just observing. That's
Yeah,
incredible. Yeah.
yeah, not making anything, not making stories out of it, not attaching or not aversions, and nothing. It's like, this happens.
Mm.
How interesting.
So, I mean, do you think so? If you hadn't come across deep meditation practices like Vipassana, do you feel like these experiences would have brought you to that place and or taught you that without needing to receive instruction from the Vipassana? Or do you
Uh,
feel like the Vipassana instruction has given you further understanding, so
mm,
then it's a little, maybe you can trust yourself a little more when you get into that space of wondering, uh-oh,
mm.
is this, have
Yeah,
I actually pushed too far? Then wait, that's right, my training
yeah.
is just
Well,
observe.
the thing is, I've done this all by myself
Yeah.
without no instructions. So then the Vipassana teachings were kind of my instructor.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
imagine, if you don't have the Vipassana background, but you have a good instructor who's telling you now
Mm.
what to do,
Yeah.
and what not to do, and how to take it step by step, and how does the physiology of your breath really work. What's the blood circulation thing? It's like, when you breathe less, you have more carbon dioxide, and that dilates your blood vessels, which is the opposite of what the cold water does. So then you get less pain in your fingers and the toes, because the blood is still circulating.
Yes. Oh man, Magnus, I'm learning so much. I feel like the way you're explaining it, I'm starting to understand. Like the way you kind of mentioned the core temperature and a cold layer of blood on the surface. I've never visualized that before, but it's starting to make
Mm,
really good sense how it actually, how the physiology responds
mm,
to the environment. This is so fascinating. So I saw a picture on Instagram where it looks like you were teaching some type of class, and there's people in red. There must be dry suits. I'm guessing
yeah,
they're dry
my
suits.
favorite prize.
And there's like about 10 people in red dry suits, and you're in a Speedo, like just skinning it, and they're all
Also red.
uh, in lotus. Yeah, I think you have your legs in lotus and your arms above your head, and you're just like floating. What was
Yeah,
going on there? Because I saw I didn't, Instagram will luckily translate from Finnish over into English. When I went to your website, I was trying to find a way, because I want to direct everybody to your information, but just to let them know, is there a way to read your website in English? I saw you have a blog in English, so I was able to get
yeah.
some
But yeah,
information.
it's experimenting in writing in English, because right now I'm writing in either Swedish or Finnish, and
Yeah,
uh, uh,
amazing,
so
incredible.
Swedish is my first language, Finnish is my second, and English is my third,
Gotcha.
and I'm also fluent in German.
Well done. I
Less
mean, your
less
English is
fluent.
incredible. Yeah.
less
how do you
fluent in French and Spanish.
wow. That's what just I love about Europe. I'm just every time I've gotten a chance to go to Europe and I'll meet these kids that are like 5 years old speaking four languages. And here in the States, I was encouraged to maybe try to learn another language, but it's just a different vibe. I love that about Europe that there's, yes, you are going to learn language or it's not. I don't know. It's just a whole different mentality around it. And the exposure, I suppose, obviously has a big help, but still,
Yeah.
for you to traverse that many different languages, that's incredible, Magnus. I mean, impressive. So you is that you I know you it's just life. Are you teaching a course with that? Like if I come to Finland and you and
Yeah.
I come take a course, are you going to put me in a dry suit first? I'll
No,
be happy about that, please. Put
no,
me
no, no.
What is
That's
going on there? Yeah.
yeah. What's going on there? They say I'm doing cooperation with adventure company who takes the customers out in the archipelago and put on these survival suits and
Wow.
make them float around just to enjoy it. And then I jump in and I start swimming in my only swimsuit around them and do a kind of guided relaxation for them. And then they slowly start wondering, what is this guy doing? He has no suit on. What is going on? And then uh, that's just to spice it up. And when they get back on the dry, the leader of the expedition, Leif, is telling them about the dangers of hypothermia. And they are, wow. And then he ends his 15-minute speech, but this obviously doesn't apply for Magnus. And then I do a 15-minute speech of adaptation and physiology, and they get the experience, like a kind of first-hand experience of, wow, this is a large planet.
This is a large planet. I love it. That is so awesome, Magnus. That's so classic. There's another really beautiful video that you posted, in my opinion, of an ice hole with several women in the water, kind of hanging on to the edge of the ice, and they're singing,
Yeah,
and they're
yeah.
singing a song, and I'm guessing that's Finnish, right? That's is
They are singing it in Swedish.
Swedish,
So
and
yeah, it's from a very famous film, and the music is by a very famous Finnish composer. The very beautiful words. It's from a film about Stormstjärns Maja, about a family living very far out in the uh, archipelago, living from fishing and like fishing like 100 years ago. It was made. It was a novel, and it was made into a very famous TV series, and it's going to be a very soon a new film again. So it's a this melody you heard, every Finn recognizes it.
wow.
And these were ladies who were so dedicated. They were winter swimmers from before, but they want a new level of it. As you see, they got
They
it.
got it. And yeah, I could, there's something, I guess, what's amazing about song and a group singing together is that even though they were going through this really intense, rigorous ice bath, that somehow the song just gave them some power to communicate something. It's a really amazing. It was touching. I watched it a
Mm,
couple of times. I was like,
mm,
wow, and it was
yeah.
really beautiful. That was so. I do highly recommend everybody listening. Please check out your Instagram page, which is oh, help me out, Magnus. Remind me.
Ice lab method.
Ice Lab Method. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow. This has been such a treat, Magnus. I just am so thankful for you opening up time out of your day to share a little bit of your life and what your days exist. What your days are like. Is there anything you can add or something that I might have missed that you would like to share? Is there any other something I love about podcasting, the opportunity to speak with people all over the world, also your generosity. Obviously, we had an introduction through Frank, but your openness and willingness to communicate and come on the show and do this. I really appreciate that. I just find that fascinating that you all are so eager and keen, because I love doing this. I learned so much. I think to actually speak with people on the ground, in the water, in the ice water, to actually hear like what is going on here, because it's very popular right now, right? Like I saw a comedian on Instagram recently say basically, all right, everybody, I know you're ice bathing, we know you took an ice bath today. It seems like it's huge. In the plaza where our yoga studio is, there's a cryotherapy center. There's
Okay.
there's places all around where people can ice bathe. Can you just touch a little bit upon? I remember listening to somebody say that he was struggling with depression, mental health issues, and that his ice bath a day has helped him to regulate that without needing medication. I'm curious, what has been your effect? What have you found in relation to mental
Mm.
health and the
Yeah,
positive
yeah.
effects that?
It has the ice bath has a kind of physiological hormonal effect also, which is it's a huge booster in dopamine. And dopamine is the hormone of anticipation and motivation. So it's actually something that gets you really going. So it's a huge elevator of that hormone. And uh, in opposite to social media, where every dopamine peak gets your baseline lower, this doesn't. So it gives you a peak of like magnitude of cocaine kind of, and which lasts and doesn't get down your baseline. That's one thing on the mental side. But what I think find is the most important thing is like let's see when you get into the cold, the physiological reaction, the hypoventilation, your blood pressure is the same as when you're afraid, when you really get scared. It's the same reaction, but uh, you are in a safe space, so you can get back into a very calm state if you know how to breathe, if you prepare yourself and then try to stay there. And every time you do it, it's kind of you are changing your unconscious behavior just a little bit and a little bit. So like every fear-based emotion gets easier, and
Mm,
anxiety is fear-based. And I talked about this with psychotherapists, and they are kind of, this is totally correct interpretation of the situation. You get you get a bit kind of more normal by doing this. You get rid of
mm,
fear-based emotions. And for me, when I started doing this very strongly, uh, I got so much more liberated talking in front of a group, teaching new groups. Like I stopped planning because I know my stuff. Why not just go in front of them, open your mouth and see what comes out? Oh, this is exciting.
mm.
And so in a positive way, I got totally reckless, and I stayed that.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
one what really helped was like more than 2 years ago, when during the pandemic, when the restrictions got too tough for our yoga studio, which we had been running for 8.5 years.
Oh, wow.
So we had to close it down, and mm, we moved out of the city into our summer cottage, where we're living still. This is debt free. There we are no cost except electricity for this. So when you really cut all costs, you can live on very very little. So it's so interesting. I do only gigs now. I do weekend courses, workshops, and it's such a different way of living from being teaching almost every morning for 20 years.
Mm,
I don't do that anymore.
yeah.
But how to kind of switch to that after the initiating grief of letting go of your life work, it was like, wow, this is so interesting. And it is still interesting.
Yes. I'm so happy you just said that, Magnus, because I've been thinking about that a lot lately. It
Mm,
very similar in relation to my wife and I've had this studio for the last 17 years, and
mm.
we made it through the pandemic, and we've been teaching every
Congrats.
day. I know. Uh, and but it was very challenging. And now there's still so many challenges, and I often wonder, like, what am I gonna do? And I love hearing that you had that same challenge, and you let and because I love this so much that I feel I would have grief at loss
Yeah,
of it, which I know
yeah,
is just a
sure.
human thing. But when you do something for so long, I just don't want it to change. I love this so much, right?
Yeah,
So
me
but I
too. Me
but
too.
hearing what you said, I'm that gives me a lot of hope, because you're having
Yeah.
just as much fun, if not more. You've been
Mm,
able to transition. I don't know. Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
cool. That's so cool. One last question, or one last thought. Um, my first hatha yoga world experience was practicing with Bikram Chowdhury in Los Angeles, California, taking
Wow.
Bikram yoga teacher training back in 2000. And hotter than you can ever imagine, hotter
Mm,
than hot. He tried to kill us. I think
mm,
much with a similar idea. Extremes, how are you going to handle it? How
mm,
so
mm,
But then you get this culture of mentality of like, I can only do yoga if it's 115 degrees. If I go into the
mm.
room and it's 105, it's not hot enough, I'm mad, and people get upset and they're like, turn the heaters up higher, it's just not hot enough. Which is an interesting kind of insanity, because when you're, you know, I saw a picture of you down dogging on the ice, practicing down dog on the on the ice, and you're
Yeah.
just debunking that whole theory. No, it does not need to be hot to do yoga. I actually think you could do yoga is better in the cold, or just as good. And this whole idea of like, you need to, yeah, you're like, you're wobbling your head, like, well, I don't know. But you know, thoughts on that? Like, I guess control, we want to control, and we have preferences. And
Mm,
so we think I have to have the environment controlled so that I can do what I need to do. What is your
mm.
experience with just practicing in whatever environment there is, and then your experience with practicing on ice?
Yeah. I normally normally don't practice on ice,
Okay.
but actually sometimes during the winter, when it's not too windy, I come up from the ice bath and I start doing yoga on the terrace in minus degrees, still wet, naked, and I continue that till I'm dry. But that's just out of curiosity. It's like the question: can you really do it? Is it
Yeah,
possible? Yeah, yeah. Is it possible?
yeah,
Should you do it this way every day? I don't think so. I think you come to a place somewhere, sometimes in life, when you just curious of, can I do it in this way, or can I do it in that way? And that's why what keeps me going, really.
yeah,
And this about should it be hot or cold, doesn't matter. The heat comes from inside. You really have to get that one, to get sweaty even if it's cold,
yeah,
if that's your goal.
yeah, yeah. Well said, Magnus. Oh man,
Mm.
well, thank you so much. This has been an amazing hour, and even a little beyond. I can't wait to publish this. I my dad and sister used to fly to Canada to go ice bath, so I'm thinking, and my daughter, she loves the cold. Last time we were in the snow, she was running around barefoot in the snow, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you are we got to get you over to Scandinavia. Like you're gonna have to live somewhere much colder. She's always so hot in Florida and her face is all red. And I'm like, she's gonna have to live somewhere cold. So I got to get her over to Finland. I think that'd be a really
Yeah,
fun family trip.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
hope to have a chance to meet you, Magnus. This has been a real
yeah.
treat. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you. It's really been a treat for me to talk to somebody on the other side of the globe. I mean, this is amazing. I'm sitting here isolated on an island together with my wife. There's nobody else here. And then I'm speaking to somebody in Florida. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you, Magnus. I'll see you soon.